Welcome to the selfgrowth.com show. My name is David Riklan, and I'm the founder of selfgrowth.com. Today, we'll be discussing the power of a breathing practice called breath work for improving a person's mental, emotional, and physical state. To help us understand this topic, I'm excited to interview Pennie Quaile-Pearce. Make sure to listen closely. We're going to be sharing a lot of information today. Before we get started, I want to take a couple of minutes and share some information about Pennie. Pennie is a spiritual entrepreneur, speaker, author, coach, guide, seminar leader, workshop leader, and retreat facilitator. Pennie helps successful professionals, entrepreneurs, and executives transform their emotional intelligence, belief systems, and change their minds in order to become truly unique and limitless. Pennie's work combines science, psychology, and spirituality into a practical program for rewiring the 3 levels of consciousness and thereby gaining emotional intelligence, an invincible mindset, and transforming your daily life. The Pennie Quaile-Pearce business portfolio of companies helps individuals and organizations realize their full potential in order to create abundant, fulfilled, and prosperous lives and businesses. Pennie, welcome to our show. I'm going to jump right in.
That's great. Hi, David, and thank you very much for the invite to be on the show. And I'm really psyched to be here. So thank you again.
All right, sounds good. So we're going to start in with a very simple question. We're talking about breath work. So what exactly is breath work, and what are the benefits?
Well, breath work is, I suppose, the quickest way to explain it is it's an action therapy, not a talk therapy. We can talk about all sorts of different things, losing weight, gaining more money, etc., etc., etc. But we keep on talking about them and there is no change, because we can talk for days, hours, years, millenniums. Whereas an action therapy is something that brings real results there and then. And breath work generically is that type of therapy. It's usually bespoke and it's very individual to the person who is actually having the sessions with the practitioner. So that's really important to remember. Also, with breath work, it's the speed in which you get life-changing or life-enhancing results. And it can literally be within seconds, or it can be within hours of the actual session, which really is very attractive in today's, world. And, it also brings consistency of results, which is really important. So depending on whether somebody's has a series of breath works, so it may be from 1 to 10 breath works, the real results just keep coming, which is really important. And also there's usually, depending on the practitioner, there's a clear-cut pathway of how the person is going to go from A to Z. And that, I think, is really important, because people like to know what they're getting for their buck, really. So I think that's really important. And, I'm talking about breath work generically right here, right now. And we'll go on and talk about the specific type of breath work that I practice and therefore endorse 100%, which is Breath for Life breath work. So hopefully that has answered that question.
So I get it broadly. So it's a type of, instead of talk therapy, action therapy. So I get that. That's very clear. Why breathing? Why breathing as a focus? Because I know breathing for most folks is an unconscious thing. We breathe naturally. It's like, it's almost like digestion. We think we do it unconsciously. Why breathing?
Well, that's exactly the point, actually. To be honest, it's the one thing that the rest of our body just automatically takes care of everything in our system, i.e., our blood pumps around our body because our heart, and we don't think about things. That we don't have to think about the heart beating. It's taken care by the hindbrain, so you don't worry about that. The one thing that we can do consciously or unconsciously is breathing. So
Right.
we can change the pattern of our breath. And, you know, in Eastern traditions, obviously with yoga and different types of breathing,
Mhm.
it has been shown that it's the one thing. And one of the things I like to think of when I'm talking about this is when we breathe in, we inspire. So we're breathing in, it's to inspire. So we're inspiring ourselves with our breath all the time. It's just that we're not necessarily consciously aware of that. So you can breathe at a certain rate and a certain depth, um, consciously, or we can just let breath take care of itself, which is the other way of being. So it is the one thing that connects our physical body with our levels of consciousness.
All right. What's interesting, I've been hearing about it. I know a number of people who practice breath work. Why would someone be drawn to breath work? What are you finding with so many therapies, so many ways to change and impact your life? What draws somebody to this kind of work?
It's usually they may have had physical pathology, they may have had a mental health issue, they may have basically had panic attacks. I've had a lot of clients coming to me with panic attacks, or they want to gain
Mhm.
more confidence because they're public speaking, or whatever the reason, they're drawn because they realize they have a block. You know, one
Okay.
of the keynote talks that I give is, why is this happening to me again? And because people realize they've got repeating patterns in their
Mhm.
lives and they want to pattern interrupt. So that's one of the reasons they get to me. I suppose it doesn't harm the fact that I come from a science base and
Right.
I'm an ex-nurse. So, that draws a lot of different clients to me, and they think, well, if there's one person who knows about breathing, it will be an ex-nurse.
Right. What's interesting is I like this concept of pattern interrupt because I think that's very, very important to change what you're doing because we're stuck in a certain paradigm. And if we don't create this pattern interrupt that kind of changes things, we'll just continue along that same path. And it sounds like from your experience and what you do, and we're going to get into your specific version of breath work in a minute, that it enables and creates this ability to have this pattern interrupt, which enables you to change. And it sounds like people are coming to work with you. Sometimes they're physical issues, sometimes they're mental, emotional issues, sometimes maybe spiritual issues. So really a wide range of issues, and many of them including some sort of blocks that people have.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most incredible thing is when someone comes to me and they've said, I can't live my life this way
Mhm.
anymore.
Right.
I go, yay, that's fantastic, because now we can bring in a change,
Right.
and that change will be so dramatic to you
Mhm.
and so life affirming, very much. I come from a school that it has to be life affirming, it has to be empowering for that person. It's not about, here's some gold, take it away and chew on it. It's a case of, let's discover your gold, let's discover where you are.
Mhm.
How can we make you or help you become your best potential? And that's where I come
Mhm.
from on this.
Okay, I get it. Makes sense. So I want to delve a little bit more deeply because there's a wide range of breath work and people that practice breath work, but you
Sure.
created something called Breath for Life.
Yeah.
And Breath for Life is, for lack of a better description, your version of breath work.
Yeah,
So can you tell me what makes Breath for Life breath work unique in the field of breath work?
I think very much so. There is a school of conscious connected breath work, which does some fantastic work, absolutely fantastic work. But one of the things when I was on my journey that I suddenly realized was, with the levels of consciousness, the subconscious mind is where we store things.
Mhm.
It's where we store all of our skills, and we also store all of the clutter. When I talk about storing skills, we don't think about how we drive, we just do it
Right.
automatically. So we've suppressed it down into the subconscious, and we only
Mhm.
bring it up when we need it.
Right.
And the reason we do that is there's just not enough room to keep that in our conscious minds all the time. So when we're looking at Breath for Life breathwork, one of the things when I was looking at it and working with it and researching it, it very much, do we want to start in the attic when we're clearing the basement? And for me, it was, no, we want to start in the basement because that's where we can actually effectively change very, very quickly.
Mhm.
So for me, I look at the subconscious mind as the basement.
Okay.
So if we're going to use any part of our brains to help us clear out that clutter, doesn't it make sense to go to the right site instead of starting off in the conscious mind, which is the attic, instead of starting off in the basement, which is the subconscious? So over time, designed a very effective way to take clients from the conscious mind into the subconscious. And I became quite an expert in this because about three years ago, unfortunately, I suffered from a stroke. And I had to do some rewiring of my own brain. And part of the process was getting this pathway from the conscious mind to the subconscious. So that's what makes it particularly unique and very, very effective. And the speed with which people make changes in their lives, which are consistent and, real and last.
I want to delve a little bit deeper in a few other areas. I know one of the things you started talking about states and levels of consciousness. So I want to get into a couple of things. You've said in the past that there are two states of being.
Yeah.
Can you explain what you mean by that? And then how does it tie into breath work? So let's start with that. Two states of being.
Two states of being. So we're either disconnected or connected. When we're disconnected, we are in our fight or flight. We're in the conscious mind, fight or flight. We're in hurry, worry. We have everyday life actually being the main focus. So we're in survival mode. And when you look at that, you look at it and go, so how many hours do I spend in that per day? Okay, which we'll talk about in a second. And the other state is being connected. Being connected is when you're in touch with your higher self, dare I say it, soul. You're in hyper creativity, you're in thrive state, you're actually cooking on gas, really cooking on gas, enjoying your life, having a productive, feeling like you're in touch with your purpose, and knowing that you are bigger than just physical being, that you are actually an immense spiritual being. And when you're connected and in that flow, I call it being in touch with your authentic self, because that's who you authentically are. You've got that compared with disconnection, connection compared with disconnection. And how many hours per day do we find we're in disconnection from our authentic self? That could be 3 to 10 to actually up to 18 hours per day. If you times that by 7 to get your weekly average, and then you times it again by, a year, so 365 days a year, we're talking a number in the thousands or bigger. And we look at that and we go, well, if I could spend more time connected than disconnected, if I could be in less pain and suffering and more in the flow, wouldn't I be living a better life, or a more productive life, or a more happy life, or a more joyful life? And that's when I talk about the two states of being. So the whole object of the game is to get the dial to go over onto the authentic self, obviously. So that's what I'm talking about. And when we talk about the 3 levels of consciousness.
Before we jump into that, can we delve a little bit more into this connected, disconnected? So I get that. And obviously we want to be more connected. So I get that. That's the goal. We want to be out of this fight or flight mode. We want to be out of this kind of terror mode as much as we can, and get this. When you're connected, as you mentioned, I like the words you're in the flow. I like the words that you're feeling, you're living, you're experiencing life the way it should be experienced. How does breath work and the work that you do tie into getting people? So I'm assuming part of your goal working with people is to get people more connected.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
how does breath work tie into that?
Okay, so well, with Breath for Life, definitely, what we teach is we teach the pattern interrupt. And we, pattern interrupt, as soon as you realize that you've gone out of disconnection, you basically do anything and you pretty much put everything else down, and you do anything to get back into connection because everything else flows from there. So, if you're an author or a writer or a life coach or a doctor, a healthcare professional, any of these people, as soon as you realize that you're disconnected, it's literally put down your tools and do anything to get reconnected. And that is where pattern interrupt comes in. So that could be, pattern interrupt can be anything as simple as having a small piece of chocolate.
Right.
It changes your state. That's it. It's changing the state that you're in at the time, whether that's going for a long walk in nature because you love being outside, whether that's going swimming, whether that's dancing around your kitchen, tremendously chanting, or if that's what you're into. But absolutely spend that minute or 2 minutes just pattern interrupt to change your mental state so that you can then come from a proactive state of being connected.
All right. So I get that concept. Can you bring it back to where breathing, how are you using these breath techniques as part of this pattern interrupt, as part of this ability? Where does the breathing portion fit in terms of what you teach people? So it sounds like your breath work really, it's not just teaching people how to breathe. It's teaching people how to use breath work in order to do these things, in order to create this pattern interrupt, in order to bring you from this disconnected to the connected, in order to tap into these blocks and remove these blocks. So you're using breath to do all these things. So how would breath fit in relative to moving you from this disconnected to the connected with this pattern interrupts?
Well, one of the things that we find is when maybe someone was driving earlier on today and that car missed them by 6 inches. So, the first thing that happens is when we suppress something, we tense. So we go and we tense and our shoulders get tight, everything gets tight, and we suppress that into the subconscious because, and the last thing that usually happens is people wind down their window and tell the person their parents aren't married. It's, that's how a tendency, we have a tendency to project that feeling rather than feeling it. So if we get stuck in our feelings, when we look at energy and motion, emotion. So it should be something comes in, we feel it, it moves it out. Right. Unfortunately, the something comes in, we tense, we hang on to it, and we suppress it into a bucket. And it's there, it could be there for days, weeks, years, millenniums. So with the breath, as soon as we start breathing, if something happens to us, instead of getting stuck and not feeling, if we actually just move the breath, it's one of the questions that I ask people is how often do you realize that you're holding your breath? And it could be we're watching a movie and suddenly something grips us and we immediately take a breath and then we forget to restart the breath again. Right. So every time we stop breathing when we're feeling, that's when we suppress it into a bucket. And you look at emotional intelligence, you can practically see 4 buckets. And we tend to talk about them as being mad, sad, glad, and scared. Mad is anything from being mildly irritated to absolute extreme anger and rage. Glad can be anything from feeling good right the way through to bliss and
Mhm.
ecstasy. Sad is anything from being mildly disappointed you haven't got your favorite ice cream at the local
Mhm.
shop
Right.
to absolute catatonic grief.
Right.
And scared is anything from being mildly anxious to absolute terror.
Right.
The interesting thing here is mad can be two different colors. It can be red hot passionate
Mhm.
rage, or it can be icy cold blue rage. And the icy cold blue rage is the rage of a mass murderer,
Right.
of somebody who is so divorced from their emotions that they could literally go up and stab someone in the heart and feel nothing. So
Mhm.
the icy cold blue rage is, unfortunately, in our society today, nearly epidemic level. It's where
Yeah,
people
you see
feel
it
so
everywhere.
numb and so bored with life,
Mhm.
and nothing is going their way. They just feel completely numbed out.
Right.
And that is one of the things that we find, or I find, that I'm
Mhm.
working with on a day-to-day level with
Mhm.
clients.
Okay, so I get it. So it's a very powerful way to use breathing, as mentioned, as a tool. And I know there's techniques, and you go into that in a lot of your programs, and you're basically teaching people how to use this to make all these changes you're talking about.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
I want to get back. You started talking about these three levels of consciousness.
Uh-huh.
Can you walk us through that? You started a little bit on it. Can you walk us through what you mean by that, and then what's the importance of this understanding?
Okay, so the three levels of consciousness, it's really interesting. And, I'm not making this one up. This is backed up by scientists and neurosurgeons and various other people. 10% of our brain capacity is what our conscious mind is. That's 10%. So
Right.
we've got 90% that's not
Mm-hmm.
being used at the moment, for want of another way of putting it. So 40% of that is our subconscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
So our subconscious mind is 40%. And, again, give or take or percentage, 20% of that is skills. So
Mm-hmm.
we've got a big skill area where we put in all our work skills, using the internet, being able to do a podcast.
Right. Mm-hmm.
All of these things go into skills,
Right.
learned
Mm-hmm.
skills, and which we can bring out whenever we want. And
Mm-hmm.
really, it's only because the conscious mind hasn't got enough room to store all of that information. So it goes into 20% of the subconscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
The other 20% is filled with clutter. And it's like having a massive wardrobe. All of those jeans and those boots
Mm-hmm.
and those
Right.
handbags that you haven't seen or used in years is kept down there. And it can be positive, or
Mm-hmm.
it can be not so positive things. So the time that you stubbed your toe when you were a child and you were told to be quiet and stop
Mm-hmm.
making fuss, into the pot.
Right.
Okay, or maybe the loss of a loved one, into the
Mm-hmm.
pot, because and all sorts of things just being put into the pot. When
Mm-hmm.
you didn't get the right gift at Christmas, when this didn't happen,
Sure.
when that didn't happen. So all of those, relationship problems into the pot.
Mm-hmm.
So all of that is in the clutter side. And the clutter just sits there like bags of unwanted rubbish.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got to remember I'm in the state, I'm talking to America. So garbage. So,
Rubbish. We get it. We
oh,
get
rubbish.
rubbish.
I say so it goes into the pot and it just sits there and festers. And then something happens and we think, why is this happening to me again? Why is this happening? We forget that we've got all of this evidence-based material shoved into pots in the subconscious mind. And going down into the subconscious to clear out that clutter frees up your decision-making process. So we tend to use decisions that we have had in the past.
Mm-hmm.
We've decided, oh, nothing ever goes right for me, or my relationships always fail, or why is it the other person always gets the good-looking girl or the good-looking guy? Why do I freeze when I'm talking, when I'm trying to talk or
Mhm.
give a public
Right.
speaking engagement.
Mhm.
And all of this stuff is down in the subconscious. And unless we go down into the subconscious and have a look at it, it doesn't come up into our conscious mind whatsoever, or it comes up as things that we just don't understand.
Mhm.
Why is, that's why I call that talk, why is this happening to me again? Is because the root cause is down in the subconscious. Okay, and unless we go down into the subconscious and clear it out, or do a stock take, a little bit like a stock take of what's in there, what do I want to keep and what do I want to transmute or get rid of, then we have no idea why we do some of our behaviors.
All right, just to stop you for a second. So how does breath work and the work that you do tie into that? So I get the value in terms of what you're doing. It makes sense. You have these things in your subconscious mind that are clearly impacting you. How does breath for life and breath work? How does that work or help relative to the subconscious?
So, well, with Breath for Life breathwork, it's designed specifically to go down during a breathwork session. So you're breathing,
Mhm.
and then we take you down to the subconscious to allow you to explore some of the stuff that is in there. Once you know it's there, and two, you breathe, because again, the breath work is, if you think of it from this point of view, if you take some water, which
Mhm.
is water, you put it in a kettle, okay, and you add electricity,
Mhm.
or energy, it starts to boil.
Sure.
And over time, it will boil and there will be steam coming out of the spout of the kettle.
Okay.
If you have that kettle underneath a kitchen cabinet, it will hit the kitchen cabinet and you will gain condensation. So it's
Okay.
changed from being a gas
Mhm.
into a fluid again. If you put a tray underneath it and collected the drips, and you took that tray and you put it in the freezer, it would change into a solid. Same thing, water,
Mhm.
same H2O.
Right.
The difference is you've added energy and the molecules have speeded up and changed into 3 different states.
Right.
And those states are obviously water, gas, and a solid. The
Mhm.
solid is us. We are the solid. The liquid is inside us, and the gas surrounds us.
Mhm.
So if you speed it up by putting in energy, i.e., the breath, what you actually do is you can change that state. So when I said earlier on, get rid of, I don't really mean get rid of, I mean transmute. So the ice is then transmuted into water and the water is transmuted into gas because of the speed of which the molecules are moving. That's the only difference. Yeah, is the speed with which the molecules, the H2O molecules, are moving. It's the same with breath work. If you breathe in, you're breathing in energy, chi, prana, ki, whatever frame of
Sure.
reference you have.
Mhm.
If you're breathing in energy, what you can do is you raise the vibration of that stuck rubbish or stuck
Mhm.
garbage, and you can raise it up and you can bring it back into the body as a resource. So you have more energy, more lightness,
Mhm.
more creativity. And instead of being pushed, feeling like you're being pushed one way into disconnection, you can stay connected.
Right. So you're using your breath work to help really release and almost transmute things that are negative things
Yeah.
to positive, to first release them and then transmute them. I get it. And you started talking about 3 levels, but you mentioned just the 2 levels. So the 2 levels.
So the third level, which is 50%, is our superconscious mind. And our
Okay.
superconscious mind is where, again, your higher self, your soul, your creativity,
Mhm.
your inner genius, your power to impact the world globally is all stored. So this is 50%, and most of us don't even begin to realize that, the roadmap or energetic roadmap, which I'm not necessarily talking about tonight, but the energetic roadmap of your chakras tell you that your spiritual part of you is just as important as the physical part, if not more important, because of the upper three chakras are all spiritual chakras. And you look at it and you just go, wow, we haven't even begun to think about the superconscious. And the superconscious is where, Jung would say to you, that's where the collective unconscious lives. That's, where, people of genius like Steve Jobs and people who've created massive impact, the Gandhis of the world, massive impact in the world, they were in touch with their superconscious. They knew where their inner genius was. They knew all of these things. So wouldn't it be fantastic if we had a roadmap, and we do have a roadmap, from the conscious mind to the subconscious mind, and then a direct link into the superconscious mind. It's just getting the map right.
All right. And as you mentioned, as we talked about earlier with the subconscious, the breathing techniques are really, you use breath as a kind of modality or methodology to help do that.
Yeah, it's an absolute key, and it is astonishing. That, don't get me wrong, I have great respect for the conscious mind. If we didn't have a conscious mind, we wouldn't be able to live on this planet, and we wouldn't be able to take part in daily life. But it is only 10%.
Right.
The subconscious mind is 40%, and it holds amazing skills, but it also holds amazing clutter. And it's the clutter that stops us moving through into the superconscious.
Okay.
If we can clear that clutter, then we have a free rein straight into the superconscious.
Oh, I got you. So it enables you to, by doing that, enables you to tap into the superconscious.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
So I just want to stop for just a second for folks. Pennie has a number of different programs, and we have a lot more I want to cover, but I just want to give everybody a website to go to and mark that down. It's breathwork.courses/fast track. And you can see some of the programs and some things that she's doing. But I just want you to mark it down for now. breathwork.courses/fast track. And there's a few other things we'll get back to your programs and stuff in a little bit, but I want to delve into a few other things. You started mentioning energy as part of all this. And I know you've been involved with energy and energetic medicine. How long you've been working in the field of energetic medicine?
Well, probably about 30 years, probably a bit longer. I was still working as an intensive care sister, and I worked in cardiothoracic intensive care. And it was really one day when I was standing at the end of the bed, and I'm just watching this poor patient going through a plethora of invasive not experiments, but treatments, and having a lot of different orthodox treatments given to him, chemical drugs and this and that and the other. And I'm standing at the end of the bed, and I just had one of these epiphanies, which basically said, there has to be a better way than this. There has to be a better way of helping and supporting people who are in pain and suffering. And it was then I started to ask myself that question. And, I just had to find a better way. So I retrained as a homeopath, which then, as a homeopath, I was suddenly exposed to the law of similars, which was so completely different from the law of opposites. And it made me grow my own consciousness and a lot of different things. And it was during that time as training as a homeopath that I was exposed to breathwork. And I just thought, wow, this stuff is like, sign me up, basically. It was sign me up, I'm in. And but it took me a couple of years with homeopathy to realize that like cures like. I mean, the most amazing thing is, I say this to some of my clients, is when you burn your hand, next time you burn your hand, put it under warm or quite, as hot as you can tolerate water instead of cold, and see the difference, because it doesn't blister,
right?
And therefore you don't get the pain. And it is astonishing. It's astonishing. I mean, it took me 2 years to trust the whole homeopathic philosophy. But when you do, and you suddenly realize that like cures like, it's like when we stop breathing, the best thing to start shifting again is to take that breath.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So
I want to keep going. I want to cover a few other things today. I know one of the things you're known as is kind of the therapist's therapist. Why do people come to train with you? What's unique about what you're doing?
I think, one, because they like the fact that I have a medical background, and therefore they feel that they can trust me. But also, I think it's, I'm 100% authentic. What you see, you get. You get a sense of humor, you get the sense of fun, you get someone who actually looks at it and goes, really? Are you sure that's what happened? So I'm not frightened. I'm not frightened of challenging in a gentle way. So it's a case of, as I said, all of us want to be authentic and real. And that's what you get with me, is I'm authentic and real. People understand that I've been through the process of training as a professional. They, I'm a trained teacher, so they know that, everything I do is rooted in science. It's not woofy. It's not tie-dye lot. It's not, we call them the Love and Light Brigade in the UK. So it's not Love and Light Brigade. It's not woofy, or I think in America you call them fluffy bunnies. There's nothing. Yeah, it's not. There's nothing fluffy bunny about this. This is science. It works. It does exactly what it says on the tin.
All right. Now, what advice would you give to someone who wanted to make big changes? So a lot of people want to make big changes in their life. For someone who wants to make big changes, and for people they work with and they serve, what advice would you give based on everything that you've learned up to now?
That's a good question. I would say to them, just write down what makes you passionate. What change do you want to see in the world, and then be that change. For me, it was, be that change. I wanted to help people get out of pain and suffering. So the first person I needed to work on was me, to get out of my pain and my suffering, so that I could be a beacon. I could be, a thought leader on this type of thing, and do it with humor and fun and a lightness that actually, this is what people are actually wanting. This is what they would love to have in their life, to wake up in the morning and anticipate the day and look at it and go, wow, what's going to happen today? Instead of going, oh dear God, I've got to go to work. And, for me, every day I make exciting. I usually have one goal during that day, and, I go for it. And it's very important, because if you have too many things, if you're trying to create too many things, you'll never get it done. Just have one focus. And that focus for that day, maybe I'm just going to be happy all day. Or it may be I have a 2.5-year-old son. It may be my focus is on him today. Or my focus is on my business today. But I have one focus, one goal per day.
All right. That's sound advice. Now, we talked a little bit about the program. So I know you have a number of different courses and training programs. And these programs are not only for people who want to help themselves, but they're also for practitioners who want to incorporate breathwork into what they do. Can you share some information about them?
Right, yeah. So one of the ones we're really excited about is on May. We've had a lot of different people. We have a course called the Foundation course, which is for breathwork. So we've been over the last few years, we've been running it over a 10-month period. But we've had quite a few different people coming back to us and saying, that's all very well, but we can't, you know, we're from America, we're from California, we're from so-and-so, and we can't fly in 10 times a year. Well, they could, but it would be extortionate. So it was very much a case of getting together with the team and basically saying, okay, so what can we do to help these people? So we've brought it all together, and we're doing a 12-day package, basically, where you come and train with us for 12 days, and then you get 10 monthly coaching calls and sessions.
Right.
But they can be done by Skype, they don't have to be done face to face, so that we can get you through what we would call the first year, or the foundation course of the Breath for Life training. We then go on, and if you decide you want to become a professional breathwork practitioner, which I would highly recommend, because it's not only a life-changing thing for yourself, but it's a life-changing thing for your life. You have a totally different career, you have a totally different business, and you can take that to the heights that you want. But that's the practitioner year, and also we do a facilitators year, which we have just had the last lot of facilitators finish their training. And I sent you an article about Matthew Donahue, who had an article written in What Doctors Don't Tell You, talking about his, and he's just next weekend will be finishing his foundation, his facilitator training. And it is an astonishing story. And these are the stories that we get all of the time. Or I get all the time. And it is a wonderful way of being. And I would highly recommend that if you really want to make an impact in this world today, then I would seriously look at this training.
All right. So one more time, I want to give out the website. It's breathwork.courses/fast track.
Yeah.
And all the information.
Yeah, that goes straight into the fast track that we've just been talking about. Yeah. All
right. We're just running out of time over here. Any final message for everybody who's been listening?
I would just say to you, Michael Caine, great quote. This is not a dress rehearsal. This is the real thing. And I would do anything that you possibly can to make an impact. And if you make an impact, then you show us your own inner genius. And if you show us your inner genius, then we are much richer because of it. And I am really, really looking forward to seeing all of these geniuses come out in the world, because boy, oh boy, we need it right now.
I like it. You're on a great mission. I like it.
Yeah.
So we're going to wrap up. I want to thank you, Pennie, for joining us today and sharing a lot of stuff we shared today. Thanks for coming.
Well, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And I'd like to thank everybody for listening, and make sure to check out what Pennie's doing. And I want to wish everybody great success in all areas of your life. We'll talk to everybody soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.